Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday night, and guess what that means? It is time for Friends and Fiction. Welcome back. We have really missed y'all the past 2 weeks while we were on a break between seasons, and we're so excited for the incredible night ahead for you, our first show of an incredible fall season. So let's get rolling. I am Patti Callahan Henry.
I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
I'm Kristin Harmel.
And I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
And this is Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, and librarians. Tonight, we'll be welcoming Adrienne Brodeur, author of Little Monsters, and Melanie Benjamin, author of California Golden. Now, make sure that you check out all the pieces of our Friends and Fiction community at friendsandfiction.com. It's there that you'll find links to everything Friends and Fiction, our weekly Friday podcast that drops on all major platforms, our bookshop.org page, which supports indie bookstores, where our books and books from our guests are available at a discount, our newsletter, and our Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa.
While we were on a break between seasons, we've had a few podcasts that you don't want to miss. So maybe we haven't really been on a break. Break-ish.
Break-ish. We'll talk about that on the after show.
On
Not
July
a
28th.
real one.
Yeah, was it a real break? Patti and Ron talked to Emily Haybeck about her debut, Shark Heart. On August 4th, Meg and Ron talked to Daniel Kraus about Whale Fall, which has already announced a movie deal and has been getting huge buzz.
And I've got a nice piece of news to share. Anybody who pre-orders my new Christmas book, Bright Lights, Big Christmas, from Barnes & Noble is automatically entered into a sweepstake. That's right. All you have to do is order by September 25th, and B&N will enter you for the chance to win a 4-foot artificial pre-lit Christmas tree in a pot.
I want that. I want that. I want that. I want that.
I'll tell them.
Put your pre-order in, Patti.
Okay. Done.
Plus, you'll get signed copies of both the Santa Suit and Bright Lights Big Christmas. So get those orders in at bnn.com stat, and you might be the lucky winner.
I could watch that like
so
10 times in a
much.
row.
I feel as Christmassy as is humanly possible to feel in August right now.
I do too. Oh my gosh.
And I hope
I
everybody.
can't. I remember the day that you said you had the idea, and I know it doesn't feel like it to you, but it feels like you're like bewitched, and you like wiggle your nose, and then there's a book. Poof.
I was thinking today about how I'm waiting like just a couple more weeks to read it because y'all know how I get in my like end of summer sadness, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna read MK's book, and then I'll be like, but it's almost Christmas, and it'll all be okay.
Perfect. I like the philosophy. Okay, so because we cannot get that book right until September, there's a few weeks left. I'm going to give you another little gift in the meantime, which is 2 more podcast episodes you can listen to, which is amazing. So last Friday on the podcast was Meg and Ron's chat with Susanna Hoffs, the lead singer of the Bangles. How fun is that? Whose debut novel is This Bird Has Flown. And coming up this Friday will be MKA and Ron's chat with audiobook narrator turned novelist Julia Whalen about her debut, Thank You for Listening. So do not miss these podcast episodes, and make sure to enter that MKA giveaway to win a Christmas tree. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So fun.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if I actually won it?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Everyone would be like, that contest was rigged.
Patti rigged it. All right, without further ado, I'm so excited about welcoming our friend, Adrienne Brodeur.
Now, Adrienne has spent the past 2 decades of her professional life in the literary world, discovering voices, cultivating talent, and working to amplify underrepresented writers. Her publishing career began with founding the fiction magazine Zoetrope, All Story, with filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola, where she served as editor-in-chief from 1996 to 2002.
In 2005, she became an editor at Harcourt, later HMH Books, where she acquired and edited literary fiction and memoir.
And now she is the executive director of Aspen Words, a literary arts nonprofit and program of the Aspen Institute. She's the author of the blockbuster memoir, Wild Game, My Mother, Her Lover, and Me, and film rights were bought by Sherman Entertainment with Nick Hornby attached to adapt.
Wow. She splits her time between Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Cape Cod, where she lives with her husband and 2 children. Her new novel, Little Monsters, was just released on June 27th and was one of my favorites of the season, as well as the July Barnes & Noble Book Club pick. Juan, can you bring Adrienne on, please?
Hello.
Hi.
I love the 4-part introduction. I just wanted to listen a while longer.
We had a lot more to say. You have so much. We had to cut it down. So, Adrienne, we are so honored to have you with us. This has been a whirlwind couple of months for you since Little Monsters was released. And we are so happy you made time to talk to us about this novel. So, this novel is about Cape Cod, a love letter, I think, long-buried secrets, and a very complicated family. We hear from many voices as we move toward the 70th birthday of the patriarch of the family. Everyone is holding a secret. Everyone is holding an announcement, which sets us up for an explosive reveal. So, although that might be the plot of Little Monsters, talk to us about what you think it's really about.
Oh, this book is really about so many things, but above all, I think my goal when I started writing it was to just super look inside a family. And by going into sort of kaleidoscopically into different characters' heads, there was this way in which I could really interrogate and examine how we all, as members of family, let alone people, assume we know what's going on in our brother, our mother, our sister's head, when in fact we almost always get that wrong. And so I really wanted to shine a spotlight on a real family, look at them with great compassion, and try to understand how different people get stuck in their various traumas and move past them and carve out their own lives.
And I think there's a biblical story that might have been a bit of an inspiration. I just think it's so interesting the way you took that and kind of flipped it over.
Sure. So when you first, I know it's different for every writer, but when you first start coming upon your idea, I feel it's like a little woodpecker tapping at your head, your subconscious going to a place, or like a lighting on a flower and getting a little nectar and so on. And so the first things that I knew about the book were that it was going to be set on Cape Cod, that it was going to be set in the year 2016, because I just felt that was such an anxious and unusual time period. But I also really knew I wanted to examine the complexities of sibling relationships. And so in that good researcher way, I thought, well, I should turn to the original of all sibling stories, obviously, Cain and Abel. And I thought from there I would discover all about, I don't know, motivation and character and whatnot. But of course, that story is so brief. It is about 2 sentences, and there's no meat on the bones. It is simply, Cain and Abel present the father with gifts. The father prefers Abel's. Ken is mad. Ken murders. I left thinking, absolutely, what was that? But of course, in that beautiful way where your subconscious creates its own logic, I realized that that's where I tapped into the structure of my story, because from it, I sort of came upon the idea of the patriarch's birthday, of this big moment that both the adult children are moving towards, and the gifts that they want to give the father, and how much more those gifts reveal about themselves, than the parent. And arguably, no one was giving sort of the appropriate Old Spice kind of present. These were very personal, kind of, let's say, not entirely appropriate gifts.
Well, that leads us kind of into my question. In this book, in Little Monsters, we meet the most fascinating characters: a daughter, a son, a father, and one more surprise addition to the narrative. Okay, so let's say we're at a dinner party, and before they arrive, you must introduce Adam, Ken, and Abby to us. How do you describe each of them to us as we head into this dinner party?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, I don't think I'm going to give anything away, but Adam, who's the patriarch, is about to turn 70, as you know, and he is brilliant and charming and funny and kind of inappropriate, and also not fully adapting to the times he's in. And he also happens to have bipolar disorder. So if I were introducing him, I think I would prepare the table for the unexpected. The stuff that comes out of that man's mouth is hilarious, but often, just a little sketchy. Ken, the son, who is 41, and he is very, very successful and has huge political ambitions. He's one of these people who kind of can't get out of his own way. He has grand plans. He likes to be controlled. He's very buttoned up, and a lot of stuff is sort of seeping out of the corners of Ken, with his children and his wife and his history as a deeply wounded child who hasn't quite moved past those wounds. And then there's Abby, who's the daughter, who's 38, who is on the brink of becoming, of being discovered and finding her voice as an artist. And so I would say about Abby is that she's someone just on the cusp who has a lot to say, and her voice has been tamped down. So at this dinner party, I think you're going to learn a lot from her.
Can you talk about, that leads me into the second part of this question, the choice to change the point of view and let us in on the secrets that the other characters don't know about?
Yeah, I mean, I really love the idea of having this sort of looming familial implosion set in a looming cultural implosion. And I love the idea that the reader / audience always knows a little bit more than the characters themselves. And I was able to do that by having such a close third person, because each person is so narrow and true in their point of view, but then you realize their missteps along the way and their misunderstandings. And in the same way, the fact that the book ends before the election, even though it's not a political book, I was very interested in evoking the sort of collective unease and anxiety of that time period. I think that it was just a very subversive and fun way to approach the material.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrienne, I'm curious. I know we mentioned in your introduction that you were an editor for a time. Do you have to consciously take off that editor hat in order to sort of free yourself up to write? Or can you talk a little bit about striking that balance between having that editorial voice in your head and letting yourself kind of run free as a writer?
Yeah, it's a great question. And of course, we all, in the same way that we all only have one childhood, so we assume that's normal.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the only way I know how to write. So I don't have an MFA. I didn't, this was the path I took. And I think I'd say that the biggest influence on me as a writer has always been me as a reader. So I read, just voraciously. And then with this added layer of having been an editor and having to read incredibly closely and understand structure and understand motivation and understand character, even if I didn't have all the MFA words for that, I feel like I got a great education in terms of what moves a book along. And, I don't even know that I could articulate it, but I know it, right? So, do I have to get out of my own way? I will say, I wish I were one of those writers who could write the totally, as my son would say, sloppy copy, just the first dash where you spill it all out and then you have something to push against. Because, of course, it's incredibly important to have something on the page that you can push against. And I'm not saying my drafts are great, but I do have a very hard time moving on to chapter 2 from chapter 1 if I haven't created a sturdy foundation or structure for myself. So I think I'm also one of those writers. I'm not really an outliner or I don't have a formula in any way. I'm very intuitive, I think, in my writing process, but I do have to have firm footing. And that might be the editor in me. It just seems too hard to be like, oh yeah, I know I've got all this wrong, but I'm just gonna keep writing to the end and then I'll fix that. No, I gotta go fix the foundation.
I do think that's the editor, because I can think I'll fix it later, but you can't think that.
But maybe that's also the way we cook.
Maybe just you're wired. Yeah.
Personality. I don't know. I mean, perhaps it is the editor. I don't know.
Adrienne, does that mean that you're making sure that the plot level foundation is there, or are you talking about like sentence level? Like, are you going in and making okay
definitely more plot level.
Okay.
I mean, I do go back and back and back and perfect, and certainly with character in fiction, I think of character as sort of the the iceberg. We all see the tippity top as readers, but gosh, like what a massive underpinning there is that we as the authors have to understand. So I feel like with my characters, oh goodness, I'm writing 200 pages till I really, till we really know who they are. And then you go back and you do all that threading through and work. And I think, I so mostly on a structural level, I just can't go down. I admire the writers who do. I actually just heard this interview with Alice Elliott Dark where, I think she wrote 1,700 pages before she figured out where she was going to begin with her book. That could not be me. Like I couldn't that. Then that's just like all of us. No.
Who has the time for that? My goodness.
Well, she's a beautiful writer. I mean, we all have our own weird process.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's giving me anxiety thinking about it.
For sure.
That's so funny that you say that, because I'm working on something new and I'm only like 10,000 words in, but the beginning I know is not right. And now I know like why it's not right. And I'm like, okay, do I go back and fix it, or do I just keep going? Do I go back and fix it, or do I just keep going?
Like your inclination is just to keep going and know that you can fix it, but write everything else as if it were already fixed? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay,
Adrienne's having hives just a little bit.
If you made a recipe where you've forgotten an ingredient, do you put it in or just sprinkle it on top at the end?
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just what I do.
The daughter of a cook and daughter of a
It's just what I do, and this is number 12. So I guess that's just who I am.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine 12 books later. I am not about to try to score.
No, but I think I should fix it. I think you've talked me into it. Okay. So we have got to talk about whales. So in your interview in our newsletter, you mentioned how you listen to whale songs when you write, and whales are so central to this novel. So why whales, and how did they help form the narrative of this novel?
I mean, the bigger question would be, why not whales? Why aren't whales in every piece of literary fiction in the planet, right? I mean, the metaphor, what they do for our world, how beautiful and wise and fun and playful and all of these things they are. So what they mean to me, I'm a Cape Codder. I've grown up watching the humpbacks migrate, watching them in Stellwagen Basin eat and play and do all those things. So, one of the most fun parts about fiction, which all of you know, is you can create the work that your characters do. And if I weren't a writer, I I would be a cetologist. So I was like, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. So there was a lot of research. There was also a lot that I already knew about whales because I'm kind of obsessed with them. So the bigger issue for me is like not to shoehorn every single little whale fact ever in there. So I stuck to the ones that I, just found so beautiful. I mean, the fact that humpbacks have pink milk, like, hello, how cute is that? Or their bubble nets, which I've seen them do to trap fish. I mean, they're so smart. But the songs themselves, which I feel so weird admitting that I listen to whale songs, but I feel like I write very early in the morning before anyone in my house gets up. It's just the only time I can carve it out for myself. And I get my coffee and I can play it just for just a song or two, people. And there's something so achingly, I don't know, just profound and beautiful and moving. Like it just moves me. And it's like reading poetry to me. There's just something about the language and the way they're communicating that gets me in a very good head to write.
That's incredible. I love that.
I feel like we're all going to go home
Start
tonight
listening.
and
We'll have some new writers.
click on some whale songs.
Once we get off, I'm going to put on whale songs and rewrite the beginning of my book.
There you go. You're so inspiring.
Yeah, is there a whale song top 40?
Literally, go to Spotify.
Okay.
But there are also some annoying ones that have like musical interludes. Like you want the real deal. You want the whale songs. And I don't really love the little clicking of some of the other. I'm like a whaleist. I'm snotty about whale songs I like. So, I'd say humpbacks are, top 10 definitely.
This is amazing. Okay, so I have one more question about theme. So in your memoir, Wild Game, your mother is the central character. But in this novel, the absence of the mother is really a central part. So can you talk to us about those two approaches? And was that something intentional or just something that happened?
Oh my God. It was intentional and then ridiculously unintentional, right? So I felt so smug and clever telling my editor, I have the same editor for Wild Game, who edited Little Monster as well. And when I handed him my book, I was like, guess what? No mom here over my mom issues. I wrote my memoir, my intense mother-daughter stuff. And now I've created a family that's just the patriarchy, a father and 2 adult children. And after she read it, she was like, Adrienne, you do know that every character is haunted by the mother. So in fact, that was news to me when I heard it, as obvious as it is. I think, it's a little bit what I said before. I think our subconscious has such a logic and mind of its own. And I know that the 4 of you know this, but one of the most wonderful things about going on book tour and talking to other people who have read your book is, the book you wrote, but you don't know the book that other people read. And everyone reads a different book. They see it through their own lens. Some people would think Little Monsters is only about mothers. I mean, to me, I can talk about women finding their voices. I can talk about all the themes that I think it has to do with, but there are ways in which, I've learned communication has been threaded through between the whale songs and Abby and Jenny finding, their power as artists that, I didn't do entirely consciously. And I think that's one of the coolest parts of writing.
Yeah, absolutely. We think that, to find out that somebody got something out of your book, that you're like, sure, I 100% meant to hit on that mother-daughter
my
theme.
Master plan all the time.
Yes, it was in my list of themes. That's what it was. Yes. Before we let you go, I have to tell you that we have a comment on Facebook from Bubba Wilson, one of our loyal members, and she said, I've started listening to whale songs since I met Adrienne. So I know. I love that. I can totally imagine her sitting down and listening to whale songs.
And the novel is just going to come out of you, baby. No work involved. Just
none. Just
over the keyboard.
All right. You've been such an incredible guest, and I could, as you know, ask you a lot more questions. But before we let you go, I'd love for you to tell everyone, because I'm so proud of what you've done with this, about the Aspen Literary Festival and the Words Prize. It's a beautiful annual award for an influential work of fiction that illuminates a vital contemporary issue. And it demonstrates the transformative power of literature on both thought and culture. You must be so proud of it. So I want you to touch on that before you leave, because I'm proud of you.
I'm going to get weepy here. It is a prize I love, and it embodies both our organization. Our organization is called Aspen Words, and we're the literary arm of the Aspen Institute, but it also embodies the principles of the Aspen Institute. And what I think is the most incredible thing about fiction is how it transports its reader empathetically and emotionally to exist outside the self. Like when you are deeply involved in a book, you are not Adrienne Brodeur living in Cambridge and Cape Cod. You could be in, I don't know, 17th century France. You could be, in Ethiopia. You can be in the Civil War. There are just all sorts of times and places and people that you can occupy and embody in a way that actually powerfully creates empathy. So this prize was created to, as you said, shine a spotlight on a contemporary social issue. So these books examine wrongful incarceration, racism, inequality, sexism, any number of things, addiction. And, the prize weights both the literary value and the revealing of the social issue with equal weight. And it's just been, and the idea is also to create conversation around these issues. So it's been a really wonderful experience. We're now going into our 6th year, and I couldn't be more proud of it. It's really, a highlight of my professional career.
Oh, it's amazing. Lifting up other writers in such a beautiful way. Adrienne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having
me. You know
Love
how much I love this book.
All of you.
Good night, sweetheart.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night. All right. Well, we are so excited to get to Melanie Benjamin also. But first, we want to talk about how we can see all of you more than just on this screen. So as we might have mentioned here before, this is the year that all 4 of us have novels out, and we have had so many incredible live events. And we can now announce, drum roll. Oh, Patti, that's you.
I'm good at that.
Well, we finally have a location and a ticketing link for the October 4th Friends and Fiction live event to celebrate the launch of Bright Lights Big Christmas. Now, we know we originally told you that this event was going to be in Darien, Connecticut, and due to circumstances well beyond our control, the event will now be held in Westminster, Maryland. We are so excited to be hosting by the amazing indie bookstore, A Likely Story, and they have partnered with the Carroll County Public Library. You can join all the fun live and in person at the beautiful theater on the campus of Carroll Community College. The event is going to be at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 4th, and Meg is going to share the ticketing link in the comments, and we hope to see so many of you there.
We're so excited about it. It's going to be amazing.
Yep. It's going to be amazing. We're super excited to get to see everybody again, and we can't wait to celebrate you, MKA. You've sort of been long suffering this year. You've
we're long celebrating. It's been a blast.
No, Patti, will you be bringing the Christmas tree that you win from Barnes and Noble?
I'm going to win the Christmas tree, bring the Christmas tree and champagne.
I feel like we're manifesting this right now. Yeah. We've manifested 3 New York Times bestsellers this year, so
there's no stopping us.
Christmas tree could be next.
I'm
totally
hoping I don't screw up our batting average.
Oh, you won't. We're worried.
We feel pretty good about you.
Yeah.
So over on the official book club page, I will be chatting live with Brenda and Lisa about the summer of Songbirds. So join me there on Monday, August 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Is it my turn to talk?
Yep.
No, it's Kristy.
Kristy, why don't you talk now?
Kristy, you're muted.
She got herself muted.
I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry. That will not happen again, I hope. All right, now it is time for our next guest, Melanie Benjamin. Melanie is the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of several novels, including The Swans of Fifth Avenue, which is one of my favorite books of all time, The Aviator's Wife, and Mistress of the Ritz.
Melanie is a native of the Midwest and published 2 contemporary novels under her real name, Melanie Hauser, before turning to historical fiction.
Melanie lives in Chicago with her husband, and in addition to writing, she puts her theatrical training to good use by being a member of the Authors Unbound Speakers Bureau. When she isn't writing or speaking, she's reading and always looking for new stories to tell.
Melanie's new novel, California Golden, was just released last week.
Juan, could you please bring Melanie on?
Hi, Melanie.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited that you're here. We loved, I know some of the ladies had already met you in real life, but I loved getting to meet you in real life recently in Chicago. It was so great. And loved this book, California Golden. We've all been talking about it. And Meg, our managing director, loved it too. We were talking about it yesterday.
She's great. And I just say, I loved Adrienne's book. I read Little Monsters last week, and it was wonderful. I really, really loved it. And I thought between the two of us, it's interesting how we treated men in our books.
That's so
Men
funny.
and their foibles.
Yeah.
It's always interesting how we don't intend it, because a lot of times we're planning these episodes long before we read the books, long before the books have even released. And so we don't exactly know what's going on or what's happening. And then there's always this connection that ends up between the two authors. So we love that. Well, Melanie, we are so excited you're here to discuss your riveting new novel, California Golden. This is a novel about the Donnelly girls, 2 sisters, Mindy and Ginger, who essentially learned to surf originally so that their mother, Carol, who is breaking into the male-dominated sport and making her mark in a big way, will not leave them, literally. Their father disappeared when he realized that he would always be second fiddle to their mother's love of surfing. And consequently, Mindy and Ginger spend their lives longing for family. And along the way, Mindy finds success in surfing and acting, while Ginger is swept into the world of surf culture in a bit of a different way that we'll ask you about soon. So these 3 women each represent a different moment in the rapidly changing 1950s and 60s culture. So that's a little bit about what the book is about. Can you tell us a little more, and then can you tell us what it's really about?
Oh, such a good thing. Well, I mean, certainly it's about this iconic era that we think about, the early 1960s, particularly the surf culture, California, California Girls, the Beach Boys, the Frankie and Annette movies, that kind of really golden ideal of that really great energy of this era. But it's what happens below the surface that really attracts me as a novelist, I think probably with you all too. So that was the aspirational part. That was the really highly marketable part of this world. But beneath it, there was an awful lot going on, a lot of things about cultural appropriation, and certainly about women who wanted to try to take their place in this world that was very, very male dominated then, and it remains today. So, I wanted to capture that era for sure. But I think at the heart, this book is it's about mothers and daughters, and it's about sisters, and it's about iconic women. And for every iconic woman out there, there is someone she leaves behind, and there's someone she hurts. And I haven't really explored that. In my previous novels, I have talked about some trailblazing women, but I don't think I've really explored the fact that they have to leave someone behind. And that's what this book is about this time, the damage. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. That is so well said.
So Kirkus gave this book a stunning review.
Yeah.
And
first nice Kirkus review.
They're hard to come by.
I mean, they're hard. Kirkus has
they're hard to come
be.
by.
I mean, maybe not the first one, but it's rare.
Yeah.
Okay, so they say, and we agree, you can practically hear the Beach Boys singing California Girls in this novel about surfer sisters Mindy and Ginger Donnelly and their mother Carol, a world-class athlete and terrible mom. Fans of Taylor Jenkins Reid's Malibu Rising will enjoy this story, which shares some of the same locales, but the dysfunctional family at its center is one of a kind. This sun-soaked novel is wonderfully awash in the music, television, and fashion of the 60s, as well as the counterculture movement. Like, totally wow. What a review. And I think that this review illustrates that this is a very ambitious novel. It's got, like you said, lots of layers. We have the plot on top. We have all that's going on underneath. What we want to know is, what was the initial spark? Can you say the moment that you thought that I want to write about surfing? Because Melanie, I'm just going to take a bet that you're not a surfer.
No.
So like, what was the initial spark?
And I did not learn how to surf for this. Sorry, folks. I'm a 60-year-old woman with half an ACL on one leg. I want to be around for a while. I did not get on a surfboard, so sorry. Actually, as you know, I think you all know, we've all had many books out there, and I think, you know, with you have a readership, but you're also trying to kind of be fresh and think of new things. And so I was kind of overwriting biographical historical fiction about real people who've lived, but I did still want to write historical fiction, and I wanted to write about women who try to break the barriers, you know, who are in a time period that have a lot more societal expectations and a lot more gender restrictions against them than we have now. And I always think that's really interesting. So I was thinking about writing about a cultural moment this time and inventing characters in this cultural moment, but inspired by some real people. So I don't know why I thought of early surfing, but I did. And again, I thought I had that Frankie and Annette kind of sunshiny image in my head. But then I started learning about iconic female surfers in the 1950s when there were very few of them. And it was a tough world to break into. And I came across a photograph of one woman. Her name was Marge Calhoun, and she's acknowledged today as the first world champion female surfer, and her two daughters. And it was a beautiful photograph of these three, I mean, just gorgeous, tall, blonde California girls standing there with their surfboards. And it's like the late 1950s. And I was struck by this image of the three of them. And I started thinking about the family dynamics then. It was like, well, did the girls want to surf? Why did they want to surf? What would it be like to compete against your mother and your sisters? And, you know, how did three women kind of, you know, with this triumvirate kind of, thing, I mean, how were they perceived in the surfing world? That photo was really the launch point for me. And from there, I started researching all these early female surfers' lives. This book is not about Marge Calhoun and her daughters, but it is inspired by the idea of mothers and daughters competing together, and made me really fascinated with learning about female athletes and writing about them. Because I think when we're writing sometimes about the 1950s, we don't always, you know, we're talking about maybe, I don't know, women in science or women in the arts who kind of break some barriers. But I was really fascinated to learn about female athletes and how few options there obviously were for them in that time period. And that helped me get into the character of Carol a bit more. So, you know, she was a woman whose dreams were dashed because she was a female athlete in the 1940s when that was not what women were supposed to do.
I just think it's so fascinating to see where spark comes from, to know that you looked at a photograph and that photograph made you wonder all those things. And I say it all the time. If you're curious about something, there's probably a story in it. And you just proved me right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You know, it's not the first photograph that inspired a novel of mine. The Alice I Have Been was inspired by seeing a photograph of the real Alice in Wonderland at an art museum. And I was just there, wasn't looking for an idea for a book, and found this and discovered this photograph and made me wonder about the story behind this photograph. And I learned that there was an awful lot that had not really, you know, that was mysterious, you might say, and that led me to write Alice I Have Been. So this is my second photograph inspired book.
That's awesome.
So cool.
Do you keep the photograph next to your computer as you're writing? Like, is it something you turn to? Okay.
Yeah, I have it as my wallpaper, you know, on your,
nice.
Yeah, I had it as my wallpaper.
Cool. So you kind of go back to that touch point every time you sit down to write. I love that.
I don't know about you guys. I don't have like a mood board. I know some people do a mood board, and some people put together a playlist. But to me, it's always, I find a lot of time, I spend a lot of time looking for one particular photograph that is either of the person, or it's just the mood, or it's something about this book, and then I make it my wallpaper.
Love it.
I like that. What a great idea. I've never thought of doing that.
Yeah.
So, Melanie, you talked a little bit about kind of, where the idea came from, but I'm really curious how you brought this whole world alive, because there was so much in this book, from the 1950s and 1960s surf culture to the phenomenon that was Gidget, to the genre of films that began with Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello's Beach Party, to the Vietnam War, to hippie communes and drug culture. There were just, oh my gosh, there were so many worlds.
And barely say it all.
Oh my gosh. And it got me thinking about how much the world changed in such a short period of time. Like, you can't say this is a 1960s book and it's just one thing. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, even in just a few years, there's so much. So
and
can you talk to us? I'm sure you had to. Can you talk a little bit about the research you did and how you used that and harnessed that to bring this complex world alive?
Well, I mean, I think initially I did think it was just going to stay in the early 60s in that one particular, again, that kind of Frankie and Annette and Gidget kind of era. But then as the girls' journeys, so they started down these very different paths, and I knew it was going to have to go longer into the decade. And really, I liked the idea of it encompassing the entire decade. Yeah. And my agent said something that was really interesting to me. She said she likes books that explore the tension between culture and counterculture. Ooh. And when she said that, then I thought, oh, well, then one sister's going to go culture and the other one's going to get sucked down into the counterculture. That's neat. So one review called the book overstuffed, but I'm like, the 60s was an overstuffed decade.
It was, yeah.
You can't write a book set in the 1960s, for example, and not talk about Vietnam, right?
Yeah, you can't pretend that didn't happen. I mean, like,
and then the counterculture, right? The cults, drug running, this kind of stuff that was really actually part of the surfing culture anyway. It was just the part was not in the movies. So it was kind of like a natural. So, I mean, I'm certainly an armchair historian. I've read a lot of history books. It's for fun. That's just my idea of fun, is reading really thick history books and then astounding people at parties with my knowledge about things nobody cares about. And so, I just, to me, it's like the things I didn't include in this book, Watts and all the assassinations and Altamonte and the Manson murders, and so many of them took.
Oh my God, the Manson! You're right. I forgot that was.
And they almost all happened in California. Even Bobby Kennedy's assassination happened in L.A. And I thought, wow, I didn't realize until I did that research how much California was kind of like ground zero of this decade that was a very overstuffed decade. Let's just be honest.
Including cults. So many cults started over there and then moved.
Right.
East.
Yeah. I mean, the Mansons, that was a whole cult all its own. But the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, which is in my book, was a real cult. And it was a surf kind of based cult. They just manufactured LSD and broke Timothy Leary out of jail, as one does. So.
That's all.
Meg
I didn't even talk about that part. Oh, yeah.
Meg said the grittiness adds so much to this story. Glad you went there and didn't keep us in the Frankie and Annette land.
and that was tempting to do that.
Because you could have told a sunny little story.
Yeah.
You could have.
Because my previous book was quite a dark, snowy, cold little story. And so I thought that it might be fun to just keep this one light. But, the more I looked about it, especially about women and these sisters' journeys, I just had to go there.
Yeah.
No, it was really, really well done.
Now, we know you live in the Midwest. Did you actually go to California?
Yeah. My husband and I have a timeshare on Newport Coast. So every year we go to Southern California for a couple of weeks in Newport Coast, Laguna Beach, which a lot of this area is set in. And then on some of my trips out there, we drove up to Malibu, which is very changed from what it was in 1958 or whatever, but it's still fun to see. And there are a lot of surfing museums all over that area. And I went into some of those and watched a lot of surfers, and I subscribed to a thing called the Surf Network, which is an actual network on Amazon Prime that's just full of surfing videos. If you want to watch people surf, that was very helpful. So I love California. I wish I could have afforded to live out there, but I can't. But I love Chicago. But it is, one of our favorite places. So we do spend a lot of time out there.
That's awesome.
That's
Well,
awesome.
that's great. It's interesting that you've got the two sisters. One has really, Mindy is a natural surfer and she's at home in that world. And then Ginger is not such a surfer and ends up in a different world. I just think that's so interesting. How did you talked a little bit about how you explored it.
Yeah. Well, it is a story. So, we have the story about the mother, but we don't really hear her backstory until later in the book. We only see her through the eyes of the children, of her daughters, for the first part of the book. And these two daughters make this plan that they're going to learn how to surf to keep with their mother. And I think unlike the actual Calhoun girls, who were both very good surfers, I thought it would be much more interesting if we had one who's a natural and who actually eventually is better than her own mother. What was that feeling like? But then the other sister who just can't keep up, right? And she's the
That'd
one
be me.
And me too. But she's the one that's, I think, I love that. I love her, but she makes such terrible decisions. She's so hungry for love and for acceptance and to be someone other than just the little sister who has to, they always have to constantly go back and kind of try to carry along with them. Leads her to make some very, very bad decisions as a woman. But she kind of broke my heart because she wanted love so much. But to be the third one of these like Amazonian women on surfboards, and to be the one who just, you just is never, up there on the podium with them, just can't keep up. But yet she had to try, at least early on, in order to have a family. Yeah.
Well, Melanie, you have been such a great guest, and this is such a fascinating novel, and we hope that everyone runs out and gets their copy. But before we let you go, could you tell us, is there somewhere that readers out there will be able to get signed copies of your book?
Oh, that's a great question. We are so blessed in Chicago. We have so many wonderful independent bookstores. And I would suggest contacting a bookstore called Unabridged Books in Chicago. And I can actually contact them too. And you can ask them to call me. I'll come in, I'll sign a book, and you purchase your book through them and they can ship it to you. It's called Unabridged Books.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for that. Okay, well, everyone out there, please make sure that you get your copy of California Golden. And Melanie, we thank you so much for being here. You were a wonderful guest.
Well, my pleasure.
Melanie,
Thank you
we
guys.
love talking to
I love
you.
all your books. You guys are amazing. I just feel faint when I think about what you guys do. I don't have
Well, we hope lots of our viewers will go out and find you on the road. And you've got your tour up on your website. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. Yes. I'm in Petoskey, Michigan, coming up this weekend. But then after that, it's in September and it's all California. And I'll be out there like 10 days, all over the place. So yeah, please look at my website.
What a fun book to talk about, too.
She's going to be in your land.
Where?
Sorry. I was sorry. So one of our Friends in Fiction members, Debbie Cooperman Stone, had asked that question about where to get books and signed books, and I was saying she's going to be in your.
Yes. Show up
California.
around on tour. That's one way to do it too.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, Melanie. Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate it. And good luck on tour.
Thank you so much, you guys. Have a wonderful
Congratulations.
Thank you. Have fun.
Melanie, congratulations. All right, everyone. Since we have been on a break for 2 weeks, we are going to be catching up on our after show. So don't leave yet, because we have more ahead of us. So don't forget, you can find all of our back episodes on YouTube. And we will be here next week with our friends Ann Garvin and Allie Carter. We have such a great episode in store for you next week, and we cannot wait. So thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week, and also in about 10 seconds. So good night, y'all.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.
Oh my gosh, they were so interesting. And who said that we get these ties? You, Kristin. Like we don't even.
Kristy, yeah.
Kristy said,
Yeah.
it's so true. Like we don't we don't plan it, and then there's these like mother threads,
and it's always like
weaving their way through.
something neat. It's not just like, oh, they both write historical fiction. Like it's it's not. It's usually something like deeper. I don't know. I love that. It's cool.
Deeper as in surfing. Deeper as in whale songs.
There you go.
Yes.
Have you guys noticed books that we've been talking about lately? Whale Fall that you guys talked about on the podcast, and then Shark Heart.
Yep. Oh, true.
There's a lot of sea life going on.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was
and
weird
I'm at
too. When
the
you said
ocean
Shark
right
Heart, I
now.
just looked up and my eye went like right toward it on my bookshelf, which like I
Ooh,
don't know where
that's
anything
strange.
lives on my bookshelf, so that's weird.
But now you know where that is. Maybe it's the summer ocean.
Maybe
I
it's
don't
the
know, but
age
you're
of
right. There's a
Aquarius.
theme.
Well, Kristy told us today it's the age of we're coming into the age of Aquarius.
It's
No, one of you has
supposedly
to
1,000 years of peace, you guys. So
That's
let's just hope
amazing.
that's happening.
I'd give for a week of it. Like,
Yeah.
1,000 years might be stretching like the minutes. But all right, so we had 2 weeks break, but as we know, it wasn't really a break. And we missed everybody out there, by the way. But what has everybody been doing with their break that isn't really a break? Mary Kay?
Well, you know what I've been doing. I've been writing like a fiend, trying to finish a rough draft of next summer's book before I go out on tour for this fall's book. I went on a solo writer's retreat to Lake Sinclair, where I broke my brains out and stared at the sunset. And that's what and then I've been working on the details for the book tour for Bright Lights Big Christmas, which is out September 26th. The first launch is Saturday, September 23rd here in Atlanta. We've got a great pre-order campaign going with a local bookseller, Eagle Eye Books. And if you pre-order the book through them, you can get an adorable stained glass trailer Christmas tree ornament that looks like Spammy, the little camper in the book.
Cute.
So cute.
So that's what I've been doing. And then I've been doing a little carpooling for my grandchildren. I was in the, I called Meg the other day and I told her I was in the time machine. I was back in the same carpool line where my kids were when they were in high school for Molly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
That must
cool.
feel surreal.
It does. It does.
Wow. I love that.
Wow. Well, I love that you've been writing so much because honestly, I can't wait to read this book. So
And you're cruising. I mean, you're almost there.
yeah.
Huh, I wish.
We said that for your editor. Shh, just be.
Yeah. Just go with it. Just go with it.
Just go with it.
Stuart, she's
Mary Kay.
almost finished, Jen. She's pages away from the end.
In fact, we know who did it.
We know.
I'm glad you do because I don't.
Zip it. How about you, Kristy? What have you been up to?
Well, it's been fun. It was fun to be home for a little bit and just kind of like have a little bit of regular summer. Will still has like a week and a half left of summer. We go back, I think, a little bit later than a lot of places. But I went to East Hampton Authors Night over the weekend, and that was so much fun. I met some really cool like superstars and some really cool superstar authors. So it was like a double fun night. But I got to meet Lauren Graham, and if y'all have ever heard me talk about it, I am obsessed with Gilmore Girls. Like, I realized that she was sitting at my table, and I was like, okay, when she comes in, do not run up to her. Because we know it's like the worst thing in the world when you're like getting your head right for an event, and you know it's getting ready to come at you, and someone like comes running up at you, and you're like, oh God. And it's great, but it's also like you're trying to just get your head straight and like get in your like moment. And so I was like, don't be that girl. Don't be that girl. Don't be that girl. And so I totally didn't. And I waited a little bit, and then I went up and I was like, I'm like a huge fan and I just love your show. Anyway, it was great. She was so nice. She could not have been nicer. But I also got to meet Ryan Serhant, and I'm a huge, huge fan of $1 Million Listing New York. I loved that show. So I was so excited to meet him. Ron would understand. Ron's my reality TV buddy. Anyway, Misty Copeland was there, and I don't know. Anyway, it was great. And then I got to meet Viola Shipman and Annabelle Monaghan and Jane Rosen, who I'd never met in real life. And anyway, I could go on and on and on. But it was a really fun night. And my designer friend, Marshall Watson, had this beautiful dinner for the library and for me at his house. And it was just great. So that was really fun. And then otherwise, we've just been like summer as usual. Pool, ocean, repeat.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Cool.
That's a good book
Ocean
title.
repeats.
Pool, ocean, repeat.
Ocean repeats.
Did you go to bingo last night?
Huh? What?
Did you
go
go
to
to
bingo
bingo
last
last
night?
night?
Do you know what? We didn't. So next week is the last one, but none of our friends could go last night, and little Will was like really tired. He had 2 sleepovers while I was gone, and so see, that's what happens when Daddy's home and Mommy's not, because you get to have 2 sleepovers. And I started a new book. I got a total random idea that was neither of the 2 things that I was thinking about writing. And I called, and we were on a meeting, and I asked these ladies what they thought. And normally I thought someone would burst my bubble, but no one did. So here we are.
It's a great idea. We can't wait to
great
read
idea.
it. Write faster.
And of course, you
want me to tell everybody what it is?
finished it.
No, I'm not
No,
gonna
she
tell
cannot
everybody
say.
what it is.
But also, you casually mentioned earlier in the show that you've already written 10,000 words, and I swear to you, you started writing it yesterday. Like,
No, it was not
I don't-
yesterday. It was not yesterday.
Okay.
But you know, at the begin, well, I think I'm like at the beginning, I like write a lot fast, and then I kind of get on my like normal pace, and then at the end, I write a lot like really quickly. But I'm getting to the point where I'll just be in like a.
it's amazing.
I'm never fast at the beginning. The beginning is the slowest for me. Like it is like drawing blood to like. I'm at the beginning, and I have not hit 10,000 words yet, and I've been working on this for God knows how long. So
Okay, well,
I'm envious.
so maybe I said that incorrectly. That maybe isn't always the case, but I think it's because I was so excited about this particular idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And as I kind of mentioned to y'all, it kind of was like formed in my head a little bit more than normal. And so I think
So you're
that's
just
why I'm
getting
like,
it all out.
I'm trying
You're
to
like,
get everything I know on the page before
That
it
makes
leaves me.
sense. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Sorry, I feel like I
well,
talked a lot.
No,
There's a lot.
I'm
did.
excited to read it.
It's been 2 weeks. Kristin, what have you been up to? I mean, we know, but
What have you been doing?
But as if we haven't talked constantly, right?
1,000 times a day.
why don't I just read our text string?
Exactly, that's right. Here's what I've been doing. Noah started school a week ago, so I officially have a 2nd grader, which is crazy. He's having a great,
such a good
school year
year.
so far. So that's been great. The day after our last episode of the summer season, I got my chemotherapy port out. So that was like at a very important sort of symbolic moment for me because, it's this little thing that sits beneath your skin and you just feel it all the time. And it's just a reminder of what you've been through and why it's there and all of that. So to have it out kind of feels like like a hopeful new start. You know what I mean? So that felt like closing the chapter, hopefully, on a difficult difficult period of my life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I mean, yeah. Knock wood, right? And then we also had a family reunion in Nashville, so that was really fun. I had never been to Nashville before, so that was fantastic. There were more than 30 of us. It's my husband Jason's side of the family, and we got these 4 side-by-side 4-story townhouses.
So cool.
So we all stayed like right there, and then we had like these huge gatherings every night at one of the townhouses, and it was really cool. We went out in downtown Nashville one night. I got to go to Parnassus Books, which I've always wanted to see.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was really good. And now that Noah's back in school, we're kind of getting back into a routine. So it's been really good to have a couple of hours every day to write uninterrupted, which is something that I've really missed. I mean, it's just been, the summer's been crazy. I haven't been able to catch up, and it's nice to feel like I'm back to my routine now.
That's awesome.
Good for you.
Well, one of the things that happened while we were on break is the 4 of us were together in
I was
Beaufort.
getting ready to
And,
say that.
I mean,
I was
it
like,
seems
duh,
like forever
we were all
ago.
together.
Yeah.
And we went to bingo.
And we went to
Kristin
bingo.
didn't go to
I
bingo.
missed
Kristin
bingo.
didn't go to bingo.
So
Okay.
sad.
You missed go.
and
we
notably-
did that. Go ahead.
We raised $26,000 for earlier.org
say,
in
that's
honor of Kristin and
fantastic.
Patti, which is really, really
that's
amazing. So thanks
fantastic.
to everybody who came, and you know, they want us to do it again. So hopefully we'll do it again.
Oh, wow.
Any excuse to be together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not a 2-week break for me. I was back on the road. For all of you who are listening who showed up for me in New Jersey and Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Boston and Cape Cod, it was an amazing week. And then I came home and I'm starting a home renovation project. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'll show you. I know, I'm really excited. And although I timed it just right, I know Pat isn't listening, so I can say this. I'm going to Nantucket next week for my last leg of the tour. And it's the 3 days I'm gone in Nantucket are the 3 days we don't have a kitchen.
Oh,
Sorry, Dad.
that's awesome.
He said we'll have the kitchen blocked off from Monday to Thursday. I was like, I'm in Nantucket. So if any of you want to jump on that ferry, I'm with our favorite Tim and with Ellen Hildebrand next week. So, but yeah, it was a really busy 2 weeks. And also I finally am back writing. And I think all 4 of us got back to writing over this break and feel more grounded and ready for this incredible fall season. So.
It's scary when you're starting something new. It's like, it's hard to like make yourself jump into it because it's like, what if it doesn't come?
Yeah. Oh, I feel like that every time. Yep.
Or when you're trying to finish up something and at the back of your mind, I keep texting everybody, oh, I had a title idea. And I have
thinking about the next. Yeah.
I have to shut it down and go, no.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that kind of brain that can work on more than one big project at a time.
Me neither.
Mary
I
Kay,
can't remember.
This is what I call that. Whenever a project is getting really hard for me, it's that thing, something shiny over there.
Yeah. Oh,
There's something very shiny over there.
Yeah.
Right? It's very shiny. And you just like have to like push yourself back to the story.
Someone, and I can't remember who it was, but it was like an author friend of ours, called it the affair book.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's like some hot guy waving to you across.
Yes. It's like, and it's going to be the best thing you've
Across the
ever written.
restaurant.
And you have to keep going back to like your old hag in the flannel nightgown.
Oh my gosh, it's exactly
Oh, like you've never
right.
had a flannel nightgown in your entire life.
Oh, ladies, what an amazing
I want you
night.
to pull out the flannel nightgown. I want you to prove it to us.
I'm going to mail her one. I'm
Picture
going to
of
mail her
old
one for
hag.
Christmas with her initials on it.
I will wear it to our Christmas party.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those
She
buttoned
said
up,
it here, marking the
one of
date.
those buttoned up Lands of Salzburg ones that has a little lace collar.
That's funny.
Kristin, you can get her the bonnet. And then
on it. Yep, just her style.
oh my gosh. Okay, y'all. Good night. What an incredible night. And we will see you next week for Allie and
Carter.
And
It's going to be a
so
great
fun.
night. Ann Garvin and Allie
that.
Carter.
2 great books too, you guys. So
I
good.
know,
If you
I
want to
know, right?
pre-read, great books.
Get on
right.
it. All right.
Good night,
y'all.